Dylan, we're
Warning,
going.
this podcast has stories of real-life events and true crime that happens every day. These stories may contain adult language and graphic or disturbing details not suitable for everyone. Listener discretion is advised.
132 in Bush, I've got him at gunpoint. Check the left phone, we're going to full evacuation on this side. We're pulling them out.
911, advise ready for entrance campus.
God!
Another episode of War Stories. I'm Tom.
And I'm Chuck.
And
do I say I'm Matthew?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know how we're in uncharted.
It's weird because I'm like,
Uh,
it's like host/guest, co-host /guest.
I think this is just a short stories episode. Short stories is what we used to do, but this is so short stories. We'd have, we'd just tell a bunch of little shit amongst ourselves, have maybe somebody on, but also at the same time, you are going to share some of your stories that you have had now that you've spent some time as a medic and you've had some crazy shit happen.
Right.
So I think you're no longer a guest, obviously at this point you're a co-host, right? But at the same time, this is Matt centric.
Yes. I'm getting dare I say double teamed.
Yeah, you dare.
team.
You dare.
Yes.
Double teamed.
And you may
Eiffel
hear
Tower.
That's right. Yeah. So, anyway, welcome to this week's episode. As you've heard, Matt is joining us, and again, as you guys know, Marco has now been on War Stories to help, and we talked about that. What did you think, Matt? You've listened to a lot of these episodes. You've listened to the show a bunch of times,
Right.
And how do you feel about the civilian perspective? Being just somebody that hands out water.
Yeah, I listened to let's dig into that, shall we?
Fucking water boy over here.
I listened to the last Locker Room podcast while I was on my shift.
Yes.
And it was the boring part of the shift. It was just
No, at this point it'll be 2 locker rooms ago.
2 locker rooms ago. Okay.
It was a boring show, but
We will let's preface this by saying we are recording this episode before we
That's
record
right.
Locker Room Live.
That's right.
And so we can talk a little bit. Marco won't hear this until after we record Locker Room Live. So we can spoil a little bit of what you're about to do.
There are there's punches that are going to be thrown for
Shots
sure.
fired. Shots fired.
Are going to be fired. Absolutely. And to be fair, we all pick on each other and we all tease each other and it's ha ha ha. But it's it's coming a little thicker from Marco, and it didn't get under my skin, but I was like, all right, let's put this to bed.
Well, so you and I texted about this separately. So
Right.
for those of you who didn't hear Locker Room necessarily, I was not on it. Matt and I were both busy. I was in a show and Matt was working.
I was handing out bottles of water,
Yeah.
according to Marco. That's what I was doing.
Well, it's right. So Marco took a dig at you, and I'm sure
right.
it was a deliberate jab, right? Marco,
You know what? It was haha. I laughed at it and I was like, "You asshole! I'm getting even." It's
Right.
like it didn't hurt my feelings
Right.
by any
Exactly.
stretch. Like it really didn't.
But what's funny is we texted about that because I was asking you. I was like, Marco took a shot at you. Yeah, ha ha ha. We got to talk about that. That's funny. And yet at the same time, it brought up an interesting other issue that Matt and I talked about, which is you've been a veteran now, and now you're a first responder.
Right.
And there is a fundamental misunderstanding that people have about what we do sometimes. And we talked about that a little bit. Like you do things and you see things and you deal with things, and then other people, and not in this case, I don't think Marco's known us long enough that he's got a full understanding.
Right.
But it does bring up the point that
Right.
there are tons of people out there that don't get it, right? They have a fundamentally flawed idea of what, cops just drive around all day eating donuts or, all that. Like, no.
Right. Firemen just sleep and eat spaghetti at the station. And
Well, that one's true.
you're right.
Well, I mean, firefighters have a fucking full room of lazy boys.
yeah.
What else are you doing in there?
Play
Here's the
video
thing.
games.
There's a
Video
part of
games.
me that's super jealous of firefighters being able to sleep on duty and make root beer floats and have spaghetti and lasagna. But at the
Have
same
a full-blown
time,
media room.
right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't want to go into a burning building. But I'd still rather go into a burning building than go run a shift of calls doing assists, lifting old ladies out of the bathtub when they've fallen and can't get up.
Yeah.
And they're old and they're naked and covered in poop. Like that. No, I'm out.
Right.
No.
What? I still had to do that as a cop.
Well, I mean, so here's the thing. If you got dispatched to that as a cop and you arrived before the fire truck, that was your fault.
It was very rare, but I had to do that.
My field training officer told me early on in my career, it was 48 out of 14 to assist medical aid, fire en route to whatever. And I'm like, oh, all right. Are we going code 3, boss? And he goes, don't you ever beat a fire truck to a medical call as long as I am in this car. 35, stay alive.
Nice.
So how has it been? Like you've got a lot of things under your belt now. And I'm just kind of a loaded question because Matt and I do talk, and I kind of know some of it, but I don't know all of it. And I said save it for the show because I want to be surprised.
Right. So I'm working for this private EMS company. They primarily do events. They do it at large venues. I'm not going to say what venues. You guys know where I work, but I don't want to just blast it out there because I want to be conscious of HIPAA violations. I'm not going to say anybody's name or stuff, but I'm going to talk about calls and I want to say where it is. But they're large venues where professional sports teams play and they have concerts. And there's like I work between 3 of the biggest ones in Los Angeles.
Right.
So one thing is I thought it was going to be a lot more chill getting to go watch free concerts and sporting events, because when I'm there as a concert goer or as a sports fan, I am not privy to all the shit that happens with fans that I've never even was aware of until I'm the one responding to it.
Okay. All right.
So yes, I thought it was going to be kind of like I do non-union set medic stuff. And that is quite literally handing out Band-Aids, ibuprofen, sunscreen. I'm basically a CVS on wheels for people, Tums, all this stupid stuff. Nothing ever happens. It's
the little
stupid money and it's boring.
Things.
Yeah, like I just sit there with my little cart, have everything laid out. People come up, can I have a cough drop right there? I need a Band-Aid. Here you go. Like it's just really dumb stuff. It's glorified first aid, right? But the money's really good. So, but what I'm doing now is I'm actually, getting to practice all of my EMT skills. And as an EMT, admittedly, I'm the lowest person on the EMS totem pole. I'm an EMT. I'm not a paramedic. I'm not working for a fire department. Any of that stuff. But I'm still trained at, to everything from splinters to gunshot wounds and resuscitations and all that fun stuff. I know how to do all that stuff.
Now, are you considered ALS, BLS? What?
BLS. Yeah. So paramedic would be ALS. They cut away with, they used to have EMT, then they had AEMT, which is advanced EMT, which was like that weird gray area between an EMT and a paramedic where you were allowed to start IVs, but you couldn't push drugs. You could manage airways. You couldn't intubate, but you could use other techniques. So it's this weird thing, but LA County a while ago just kind of did away with that. And they said, you're either an EMT or you're a paramedic. So
BLS is basic life-saving, and then ALS is advanced life-saving?
Yeah, support. Basic life support, advanced life support. So as BLS, I basically, with the exception of assisting somebody with their own prescribed EpiPen, I cannot break skin. Whereas a paramedic can start a line, they can do an IO, which is when you start an IV in someone's freaking tibula in the bone. Yeah.
So I've seen a couple of those are fucking wild.
And they can push drugs and whatnot. I'm basically charted with judging, sick or not sick, and stabilizing until the next level of care arrives, or I get that patient to the next level of care.
Right.
Right.
So that's pretty much how that works. When you see the private ambulance companies rolling around, typically there's an EMT that's driving and there's a paramedic riding shotgun. so the EMT will get out and get all the basic stuff going. Paramedic will come and start lines, do whatever, and then ride with the patient. And the EMT is the one driving the ambulance, and that's pretty standard across the country.
Right.
So I fall into that EMT category. So I get to this private company that does all these events, and it's per diem stuff. So I go on their little app and I pick what shifts I want to work, and
Oh, nice.
yeah, so I work whenever the hell I want. So basically I went back through the calendar and looked because I was curious because I'm now a event safety supervisor. I'm a medical supervisor now.
Right. For those of you who don't know Latin, per diem, it roughly translates to whenever I fucking feel like it.
Correct. Yeah. It's on an as wanted basis.
Right.
Yeah. So I went back to my work calendar to see, and I worked a total of 10 shifts with this company when they said, "Hey, you know your shit. We want you to be a supervisor," which was basically in those 10 shifts, it translated to just under 2 months.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
So you worked 10 shifts. You showed them your worth in 10 shifts, where
Correct.
there had probably been people there that had maybe worked a little bit more shifts, right?
A lot more. Years more than me.
Can't show their worth because they're fucking not as great.
That are now salty because I'm their boss.
So yeah, that's BS, because that just shows your competence level and your maturity, and it shows their lack of competence because they've been there for longer, and that looks bad on them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it also comes
absolutely.
down to, like, we were raised different, right? And
Correct.
Right.
you've got a couple things that you bring to the table, right? So when I came to my job, I got promoted into the job I'm in now, because I came there with 30 years worth of skills,
right,
that transferred and were transferable.
Mhm.
And then I came to them with 40 plus years of common sense and life experience. And I
correct.
wasn't a dipshit,
Right.
and I was able to keep my head, right? So there's an element of I remember you testing me or texting me, and you said, "Can you believe this shit?" And I said, "Abso-fucking-lutely, I can believe this shit, because you've been proving your competency since day one." And part of that started when the military stuck a foot in your teenage ass.
Correct.
And you asked for that foot. You said,
Yeah,
"You know what?
yeah.
I remember your teenage years, dude. They were not calm, cool, and collected." And
Yeah. The fact that I ended up in prison. Oh wait. The
Shit, pump the brakes for a
the
minute.
fact that I didn't end up in prison longer.
Right. Right.
Well, I mean, that just goes to show your testament of your knowledge, your skill that you took. You took it as, this is something that I really want to learn, and I'm going to put forth every effort that I have into it. And a lot of other people that have this think that everything is going to be given to them. Oh, I'm here. I'm doing X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
It needs to be given to me. No, you need to go out and show your worth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's
you've been
the
doing that.
thing. I work with a bunch of, I call them kids because they're all, in their 20s, and I'm going to be 49 next month. So mathematically, yes, I could be their father. But they're using this as, I'm just an EMT for this per diem company, and it's a stepping stone on my way to med school, or a stepping stone on my way to, getting more patient contacts for med school, being a paramedic, or I'm going to go into fire. And I look at it as, this is my job, and I'm going to do my damn well best at it, and I enjoy the work, and I'm the guy that's there an hour before my shift. And they all saw that, and they're like, "Wow, you're early." And I was like, I look at my watch, I go, "No, I start in an hour. It looks like I'm right on time." And they saw me going through all my gear and making sure I have everything, and saying, "Hey, I need more of this," or "Hey, where's this?" And getting all my stuff ready because I want to set myself up for success. And you get these kids that come in, right when their shift starts. And it's a generational thing for sure. It's
For
it's
sure.
100% that. Yeah. But yeah, I don't think I'm just an EMT. Like Thomas, you and I have talked about this, and it's cheesy, but I got into this because I wanted to continue to serve in some capacity, and I can't be on a fire department because of my tattoos, and I can't do certain things, but I found a way to where I can still be in my community. And as corny as it sounds, I'm there in between, A and C, and I'm B, and I'm standing in the gap and trying to make a difference. And corny, whatever, but that's honestly how I feel. My heart is in this.
And
So, and that translated to my superiors, and
Right.
After not even 2 months, they were like, "Hey, we want you to, we got this new venue that's been around since 1922. Can you be in charge of it?"
Fuck yeah.
And so
That's
it's
awesome.
kind of a cool thing,
Well, and there's nothing worse than being at a venue or a sports event or something like that, and you get seriously injured, and the person taking care of you is someone who's just using it as a stepping stone that really doesn't care,
Right.
as opposed to someone who, this is my
Right.
fucking career. This is my job, and I'm going to give you the ultimate best care I can every second that I have throughout the day when you're injured in front of me, and I'm going to make sure you feel like you're number one because that's what the most important thing is. And having that, it really transcribes off, and you really feel it. You really feel the warmth being taken care of by someone who actually cares, as opposed to someone who's just using it as a stepping stone. Not to say that they did that. I'm just saying it does come
Right.
through very
Oh,
much.
yeah, absolutely. And you get these, where I'm working events now where there's, at sporting events where if you're on the floor, you are going to be within arm's reach of A-list celebrities that pay
Right.
ridiculous amounts of money to be right in front of this court while
Mhm.
this game is being played.
Mhm.
And last night I was working a game and I was a supervisor, but I had to put myself on the floor with another supervisor because I couldn't trust these other kids to not be star fuckers and,
Wow.
try to get a photo op or just be so focused on
Right.
these celebrities that you're not focused on your job. And you're not looking at everybody else in the crowd and noticing, hey, that person's stumbling. I'm going to see if they're going to fall, and just stuff
Mhm.
like that, being hyper vigilant. So that's
Well,
a whole
so
nother
there you bring
factor
up a good
too.
point because when it is something that people who have done protection details and whatnot have to understand is when you work those details, you have to watch the crowd. You don't get to
Right.
watch
Right.
the person you're supposed to protect. You
Mhm.
that's it. Like you can't do that.
Right. Right.
And
And I
that's the
mean,
biggest. Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say sometimes we're there's like there was 2 of us on the floor in one spot, and then
Mhm.
we would take turns like, "Hey, I'm gonna watch the show for 10 minutes, you watch the crowd," and then we switch,
Right.
So there's always somebody like,
Right.
Right.
looking for the problem before it even happens, basically.
Right. And that was the biggest problem I saw when I did undercover security for CrossFit games, for CrossFit headquarters with all those dudes and guys like you who are in charge of like the whole medical and stuff. That was their biggest issue. And that was the biggest thing for medical and security because you would have these kids on the floor who were next to like the CrossFit games athletes are coming down and there's a bunch of them, right? And they're all famous, right? They're your favorite athletes. And they'd
Right.
be guys who try to take selfies and stuff. And you're like, what are you doing, dude? You can't do that. That looks bad. It's on camera. It's being filmed. They're making a movie right now. You can't be doing that. So you'd have to post people who knew what they were doing. And then they just started posting, the undercover guys because we were in the crowd with these people and we knew them, but we weren't going to be starstruck by them because we knew we had a job to do. And I didn't even get to watch any of the stuff that was going on because I was worried about, fans trying to touch them as they're making their way down and making sure
Right.
everyone's safe and the egress and ingress areas are clear in case medical has to come in because people were getting hurt.
Yeah.
So it's that type of competency that major venues need. And it's great to see you take full force of that and be like, this is my job. This is my career moving forward. And I'm going to give it everything that I have, as opposed to some of these other young bucks out there that are just using it as their stepping stone or
Yeah. And
experience
there was
moving forward.
one of the younger guys, a couple of shows ago at one of our venues was dancing. Was not on his lunch break, was in
What?
uniform, on duty, on the
Man.
floor, and not just like, it's natural if you're listening. When I was working the Slipknot concert, I was kind of doing a little bit of a head bob, but I was keeping it reserved because it's like, I like
Right.
that band, and I was like, cool. But this guy, it was like an R&B
He's
event.
out fucking slam dancing and shit.
Oh no, this guy was just like it was like Michael Jackson out there freaking, and dude's got moves and everything, but
Whoa.
the problem is there were people in the stands that are now filming one of the EMTs busting a move on the floor,
Right.
and then that looks bad on the venue because
Mhm.
you're not there for that. You're not a spectator. You are there to be professional
Have
and to
some
so
fucking professionalism.
so he after that event was informed that he's no longer welcome to work at that venue. He's still with the company. He just can't work at that venue.
Wow.
I
So, and
mean,
there's a lot of
Wow.
cool concerts that are coming up that I'm sure he's going to be upset about, but it's like,
Mhm.
that's not what we're there. We're not there for
Right.
that, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah. So,
So let's talk about some of the things because
Crazy calls.
I know. We're gonna give Mark. You're gonna give Marco a rash of shit, or you did. Marshall, I guess in the past tense, you did give Marco a rash of shit. But what are like for the people that don't understand like what EMTs deal with, especially because here's the thing: when you're setting up, you and I have talked about this too. It's like, yeah, there's the fact that when you're working on set, sometimes nothing does happen,
Right.
but when you are working at these shows, what kind of stuff are you dealing with?
Okay, so the most common thing is we get ETOH calls, and people.
I'm so proud of you now.
So,
Can you describe what that is for people who may not know
so
the
that's
acronym?
so ETOH is short for ethyl alcohol, and that's someone's drunk. You're drunk.
Yeah,
You're
cops,
ETOH.
cops have
you're
different cops have different words for it. Sometimes we had
390.
HBD.
Yeah.
We had
what?
390.
HBD.
Okay.
You had what?
390. The
Okay.
penal code 390, or no, it's 647, but 390 would just
we had
be
F.
what we call
Yeah.
So
F. We just
390
called
was
them
just
F because 647F of the California Penal Code is drunk in public.
Okay.
So they were F, or if they were not F, because there's an element of that means you're unable to take care of yourself, right? However,
Right.
if they were drunk and still able to take care of themselves, they were not F, they were HBD, which comes from the checkbox on the California Highway Patrol's traffic collision form that everybody has to use in California for traffic collisions, where you have to mark if someone had been drinking or had not been drinking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
HVD. Gotcha.
HBD.
We also,
Yeah.
you guys use Deuce too?
Yeah, everybody uses Deuce for DUI, but that's because the old section was 502. In fact, Matt and I worked with a guy who used to say, I ain't never getting my license back. I said, why? And he says, I got a 1506. The judge told me I had a 1506. I said, what the fuck is a 1506? He goes, 3 502s in 1 month.
I remember that. Yep.
Yeah, but ETOH is what met, and that's why I laughed, because I'm so proud of it. I remember being a rookie cop and hearing a medic go, is ETOH? And I looked at my buddy, I'm like, what the fuck is ETOH? And he's like, that's what stupid medics call F.
Yeah, so
it was just, we give each other shit.
Yeah, so we get a lot of that, and the deal with that is depending on the venue. There's one venue I work at. If we get an ETOH call, they call us for it, and we get there, and I will assess somebody, and determine their level of consciousness, the LOC for short. And you ask 4 questions, and make sure they're aware of themselves, where they are, the when they are, and what happened. And pretty much the rule in LA County is if you are A&O, so alert and oriented, times 3 or higher. So if you answer 3 out of the 4 questions correct, or all 4 questions, and you're just drunk, there's nothing medically wrong with you. You are just drunk. You're being a nuisance. And then that's when I'll look to security and go, you need to kick them out. Like they're just, they're puking all over the place. But if you're only A&O times 2 or times 1, if you only answered me what your name is, and then I ask you, where are you? And you say, I'm on the beach, or you rattle off a different concert that you're at and ask you what year you're in. I had one lady tell me it's 2028. I'm like, all right, well, that's, I can't just kick you out. Then I have to, run a further assessment, and there's more paperwork and it's vitals and all that other stuff. And then I will care for you in a manner of ruling out any sort of diabetic reaction, because I don't know you, and if you're, if you're having a diabetic emergency, that could present as you're just really drunk as well. So, get your blood glucose level, all that fun stuff, and run a whole gamut of other tests. I don't know why that alarm went off. I apologize. But there's another venue I work at where the house answers ETOH calls first, and they determine if somebody's just up puking and being a nuisance, and they will just eject them without even calling me. Yeah. So when I say the house, it's like the employees of that venue.
Right.
So
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like I understand what the house. I just meant what employees do they?
Well, they have their own employees. So different venues, they have security through a private company like medical, It's a separate, company, but this particular venue has their own people that's employed by the venue and not through like a security company. Like I think one of the popular ones that does a lot of venues and sporting events is called CSC. And I don't even know what that stands for, but that's the security company they use. So they'll use their own people that are trained by them at the venue, and they'll respond to that. And then they go, yeah, we're just going to eject this person. Now, if they get up there and the person's kind of like barely conscious and like chins down on the chest, and then they will call for medical resources to come evaluate that person. So we get a lot of those calls. Now, the problem with that is not just the ETOH. It's when we have an ETOH and then that person falls, and then you have head trauma secondary to ETOH. So then you have, a trauma situation, which I had a couple weeks ago. There was somebody who was sitting down for this event for about 2.5 hours drinking and decided to get up, stumbled, fell backwards, back of the head, met the corner of a concrete step, and just split it open. And
shit.
It doesn't, once head injuries bleed like a freaking sieve. Like it always looks way worse, but this one was bad. This one was like a good, like damn near 3-inch gash. He just cracked his melon open. So then it's, then you're there and you have to control that bleeding and then get somebody, that was, all the way up at the top of this venue that holds 17,500 people, and get them all the way down to first aid, and then treat them along the way, and then determine, like, do I need to call ALS to come in? And but the wildest call that I had was something that I was told we weren't even supposed to respond to, but I got dispatched to. So I was at a venue. There was a concert going on. I had an ETOH she felt better. And our policy is we'll throw you in a wheelchair. I will wheel you out past the main gate, and your friend can come pick you up, and then you're no longer my problem. So I was wheeling this person out. I had a brand new EMT with me that didn't have a radio or anything. So I had the radio between the two of us, and my supervisor calls me and he says, hey, medic, whatever number I was that day, what's your location? And I said, I'm walking out the main gate right now with this ETOH lady. And he goes, can you step away from that call and respond to something else? And I said, yeah, I'll have my partner take her. What's going on? And he said, we have a pedestrian that was struck by a vehicle outside the gate. And I said, on my way. And I looked over, there were 2 other EMTs that were standing in the concourse area, and they all heard the call too. And I'm like, what are you waiting for? Fucking come on. So I get the kids to come running with me, and we go outside the main gate, and it's on the street. There's a bunch of chippies there. We run up there, and on the way I'm calling for a trauma bag because I just have, basic stuff. I was like, I didn't have a C-collar on me. I didn't have a bunch of other stuff. So I'm like, hey, have someone run a trauma bag.
Pouch with flashlight, scissors.
Well, no, I have a backpack with a bunch of stuff, but I knew I was someone gets hit by a car. Like, I want a C-collar. Like, I'm
surprised CHP did bar.
CHP was literally standing there with their hands on their hips, kind of just looking at him. They weren't even touching him.
That's sad.
Because he was on traffic control overtime.
Right. I don't know what the deal was, but
I'm gonna tell you right now. He was like, I'm getting paid for traffic control. I'm not getting paid to fucking deal with this shit.
That's so shitty. That's so shitty because I know for a fact
what CHP stands for.
Yeah, but my dad was CHP, and he always carried his EMT bag like everywhere. And for every and I know most of the cops that all worked in, they would do overtime gigs, they all carried that shit in their car because they never know when shit's gonna pop off. And that goes to show you generations are different.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, by the time my supervisor told me about that call to the time I got out, no exaggeration, was maybe a minute. I was right there, and I fucking ran. So we get out there, and it's not a pedestrian versus vehicle. It is pedestrian times 2 versus vehicle. So then I was happy that I grabbed 2 other people with me.
Yeah, right.
So we get there. There's a man and a woman. The woman's kind of like trying to sit up, and the guy is just on his side groaning. His face is bloody. His right wing just looks mangled, like it was not anatomically correct at all.
So this was a pretty good impact.
This was really good. It was somebody who was going cut down the wrong side of the street and hit this couple as they were jaywalking a mere 20 yards south of a crosswalk. So
good to know that jaywalking is no longer illegal in Southern California.
And that's the first thing I was thinking of, like, the whole time. I'm like, the crosswalk's right there. Like, why aren't you assholes in the crosswalk? It's right. It's 20 yards there. Like, that's not far. They were trying to cross the venue to get to one of the parking structures that's across from the venue. So we get there, and she's kind of okay-ish. We don't know what's going on, but he's just mangled. So one of the EMTs starts holding C-spine, which is basically where you're just holding the person's head and neck in a neutral position as to not further, any spinal injury until we got a C-call there. So she's holding C-spine. Other person goes over to the woman, and I'm kind of looking at the guy, and I'm like, all right, let's roll him onto his back because he's on his side, because I got to start doing a trauma assessment. And I looked up at the chippies, and I'm like, you guys call fire? They go, yeah, we called fire. But the area is so congested because there's other venues near this venue that I knew it was going to take him a minute. So we get him on his back, and then he gurgles a little bit, and he goes, I can't breathe. And I'm like, cool. So, so
that's the funny part too, is instantly they go, I can't breathe. And you go, well, you're talking.
Yeah. But it's like
at the same time, you're like, good to know.
But initially I thought, okay, he's got some busted ribs. Maybe there could be, a potential pneumothorax, which is a collapsed lung or something. I mean, I don't know. This guy's still clothed. So get him on his back. And I tell my partner, I'm like, try to keep his eyes open, keep talking to him. And I pull my shears out and start getting him naked. Like, you're going to get trauma naked. Here we go. I got to see where's, what else is ooey and gooey and where the soft spots are. Yeah. So I go to start cutting his
leathers, man.
Yeah. So I start cutting his pants, and the other guy goes, you should wait for fire. I'm like, no, I'm doing a trauma assessment. Like, we're here now. Fire's gonna be here.
He's just been hit by a fucking car.
Yeah. I'm like, no, I'm going to see what's going on. So, cut his pants up, cut his shirt up, start doing a quick trauma assessment, which is where you're basically just working from head to toe or toe to head, depending on where you are. And you're just kind of applying pressure opposite. So like on the, on his leg, you'd put one hand on the outside, one hand on the inside, and just kind of do a slight little pressure just to feel if there's anything crunchy going on, or to see how this, the patient reacts. And you do that throughout the entire body. You're pushing and pulling, and just, gently, but enough to where where the owies are. And so I got up to his abdomen, and I'm palpating, the 4 quadrants of his abdomen, and I get up by his ribs on the right upper quadrant, and he's like, oh, and I kind of felt it give a little more than it should. And I'm like, oh, those are broken. So, and the right arm was just, it was like an ulnar radial fracture. Like, I think both of those bones were just snapped, and it was just the fact that it was like almost sticking out of the skin, but not quite. Like, it was that real
dude, I just had a visceral reaction to a bad call memory. Anyway, go ahead.
So, and I get up to his head, and you got to check, behind the ears, you got to check the face and everything behind the head, if there's blood or anything. He had a couple of really good lacerations on his face that I knew was going to need sutures. So then we just basically got him stabilized, and then the trauma bag shows up. I'm like, cool. So whoever grabbed the trauma bag, this is no dig on the company I work for, but this person grabbed a bag that was in the middle of getting set up, and there was just basically airway management stuff and an oxygen tank. There was no other trauma necessities in there, like, importantly, like the C-collar that I needed. So there's no C-collar. So I look at the, other EMT. I'm like, you're playing the part of C-collar till fire gets here. Like,
the illness, the part of C-collar will be played by your ass.
I'm like, sorry. So,
so I have been the least qualified person at a call, right?
Yeah.
And I look at the medics and I go, you guys are clearly overwhelmed. What can I do? And they go, fucking hold C-spine.
Yeah.
And I go,
it's important, and yeah, because once you do that, you are stuck. Like, you do not move. That's it. That's
until
where
somebody
you're living
brings an actual collar. Yep. You're it.
Yeah, because God forbid you let go and that shit shifts.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and you can't be like, "Hey, tag me in." Like once you're holding it, you're holding C spine.
No.
There's no
Right.
switching. There's no. That's like that's it. You are the C collar.
It's you are you have the finger in the dam.
Yes.
And
Yes.
there is no switching.
Yeah. So county services that area, LA County Fire, and they got there, I want to say within about 6-7 minutes, which is respectable for the area and the amount. It felt like an hour, and
it always
so
does, right?
yeah.
It's maybe minutes, but it feels forever.
Yeah, so
It's like when
they show up, and the medic walks up, and I just went into autopilot and just started, doing my patient handoff report. I'm like, here's blah 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 blah, and these other two kids are looking at me like, because they're kind of new EMTs, and it's like it's one thing to practice on a dummy in class, but it's another to, actually do it. And so once they took over and everything, I'm like, cool, I'm standing up, and one of the cops goes, or no, one of the somebody else standing there goes, do we know what kind of car it was? And the chippies are like, no. And I look down and I see the side view mirror. I go, it's a black Honda. And the chippy goes, how do you know that? And I'm like, because that's a Honda side view mirror. It had the little Honda logo etched on the on the glass, everything.
Right.
Like, aren't you supposed to know this stuff? Don't you guys
like,
look
right
at cars
there.
all day long?
I mean, and I'm thinking, I wanted to say,
Dude, he didn't even look for evidence, I'll bet.
Yeah, I'm thinking, wow, you're clearly not a detective, like whatever. But
I honestly, I thought you were going to tell me there was like a hood ornament impression on the skin.
Oh no, there was just the person. They probably got hit about 25 or 30 miles an hour, which isn't fast when you're driving, but it's fast when you're standing there getting struck by a vehicle.
It's fast when you're a person made of flesh and bone.
Yeah, so the guy, I'm presuming was primary impact, and then she was standing next to him, and she was just secondary too, and kind of got, because there was none of her skin was broken. There was nothing. She was.
I wonder if he got knocked into her.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like they were together. They're a couple, so they're walking side by side across the street, and then boom, boom. But yeah, hit and run. Person took off.
That's the common thing in LA. Every time you hit a pedestrian, they freaking flee every single time.
And so we pack up all our shit and we're leaving. We helped, another ambulance came there and we helped get them loaded up and everything. And then we're done. We did the, our hands are clean here. We're out of here. And all the top people from that venue were out there and saw us doing that. And they were like, oh, cool. And it's like, yeah, we know what we're doing. We're not just, quote, first aid. So we walk back in, and it's, we're all kind of like feeling a little buzz. Like, that was
one question though.
Yes.
Did you give them water?
I did not give anybody water. I did not do my job. Marco, I'm so sorry. I failed at giving those two people water.
What about ibuprofen and changing their socks?
No, didn't do that either. Yeah. No sunscreen either. I mean, it was night, but you can never be too cautious. But on the way back in, I'm walking in with the two other younger EMTs. And this was right after a concert, right? And I look at them and I go, well,
say hi.
That was the hit of the evening. And
do you think that call right there, what all management saw you take charge, is one of the reasons why they're like, this guy's competent, we need him leading these younger guys? Because the way you took charge, I mean,
yeah, I think it helped. I think it showed that, I'm older, I'm mature, I was calm, I didn't freeze, I just have somebody else telling me to wait, and I'm like, fuck you, like, this is our job, we're first on scene, like, it doesn't matter.
Right.
I mean, I respect the hell out of LA County Fire and their paramedics, but they weren't fucking there. I was. And so, that's
the same thing. That's the idea of when you talk about like the first responder, right? Like, I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah. Here I am.
And there's a duty to act.
Correct. Right? Yeah. Although technically,
I know
when we were there, we were told if it happens outside of the main gate, you call county. But I was right there.
Right.
And had I been out at the main gate and saw that, even if I didn't get the call, I would have ran out there. Because
you probably would have radioed in
ethically, I would have radioed in. Yeah. Morally and ethically, it was 100% right and dutiful of us to respond to that because we're right there.
It's the right thing to do.
Correct. Yeah.
Which I feel like that's a concept that people have lost. But
yeah. It's crazy that you had to tell those younger kids, "Hey, what are you doing? Let's go." Like, you hear it tone out. Come
Yeah.
on, man.
Yeah, because they were
Let's
like looking at me because
keep
well,
going.
because I was the one that got asked to respond because it was just one person. But I looked at them and I'm like, no, let's more hands the merrier. Let's go. Because
Thank God you did.
I never trust. There's calls I get at these venues where it's like, um, good example of another one at a venue at a concert, and we get a call in from the house that says, hey. And I was basically because I'm a supervisor at this one venue, so I'm stuck in the room dispatching the kids. Um,
Mhm.
and I get the call that there's somebody who just had a seizure down in the main plaza area. So I have to pull the closest EMT I have to me and I say, hey, I need you to respond to that call in the plaza. So this young man comes by my office, the medical first aid office on the way, and comes in and tells me that I need to call 911 because that person just had a seizure and they need a head scan and they need medics here so they can start pushing Versed, which is a drug that you give post seizure. And I stopped him.
Mhm.
I said, "Did you already go assess the patient?" "No, but this is what you're going to need to do." And I said, "Can you do me a favor? Can you go assess the fucking patient and give me a call on the radio and let me know what you see?" And he goes, I said, "You're wasting fucking time." And so runs down there and then radios in and says, "Yeah, this person is just ETOH plus cannabis." I said, "Cool. Wheel the patient up to first aid." And by the time she got to first aid, this is somebody who just hadn't smoked weed in, she said, about like 10 years. And the stuff's, strong. And
A
she
little
took
bit,
a little
yeah.
too much, and she
Mhm.
kind of felt a little woozy and fell to the side a little bit, never lost consciousness. But somebody saw
Right.
that and called it in as, oh, she just had a seizure. So once we're clear from that, I pull him aside and it's just me and him in the room because I would never do this in front of anybody else.
Right.
And I said, "What did we learn?" And he's like, "Yeah, but I just thought," I said, "you cannot assess a patient that is not in front of you. You can't
Right.
trust the public to give you medical direction." I said, "So do me a favor." And he goes, "Yeah, what's that, Matt?" I said, "The next time I dispatch you to a call," he goes, "Yeah." I said, "Go to the fucking call."
Hmm.
Like that's all there is to it. Go to the call.
So
And
when you dispatched him to the call, he was just like, "Oh yeah, I talked to him over the phone. The person's just, this and that." And you're like, "What?" Like,
no,
so you never went there?
he never went there. He had to come by my office to go to the entrance of the venue, and he
Mhm.
elected to come tell me that I needed to call 911 and I needed to get all these resources activated before he even saw the patient. So I had to tell him, I said, "Dude, our job as EMTs here is to look at a patient, assess them, figure out sick or not sick, injured or not injured, and then go from there and then choose the next level of care." But
100%.
you can't take what the public says. They don't know. Somebody said she had a seizure. 100% did not have a seizure. And we get calls like that all the time. People say, "Oh, this person's unconscious." And someone's like, "Let's start ALS." I'm like, "Why don't you go see if the person actually is unconscious?" And we get there and it's, "Oh no,
Right.
they're drunk and just fell over and somebody thought they were unconscious." So
Right.
it's stuff like that. And there's always secondary injuries, but um, I
Well,
had
that's
a
kind of, I used to uh, I used to tell people, like, in dispatch, don't tell me what it is, right?
yeah,
Don't tell me what you think it is. Tell me what
Mhm.
the person is telling you, right?
correct.
Do not say it's possible this or probably that or no, right? Uh, You don't know. You're taking a friggin' phone call.
Yeah.
Right.
Just give me the actual information.
Right, and even then, you can't trust it till you get there, but at least you know what
Right.
you might be walking into.
Right.
Right. Because how many times did you get the call and you get there and it's not anything close to what was relayed over the phone? Because maybe it was heard or third hand info and it wasn't actually witnessed. It was just
Right.
heard only, third hand info only. It's things like that happen and it doesn't always come through on the other end, like with dispatch and stuff. And you get there and you're like, oh, this is different. This is not anything like big nothing, you
Yeah,
know?
and there's sometimes you get calls that seem like it's nothing, but, um, at
Mhm.
this same venue, we got a call that, somebody wasn't feeling well. So I dispatched an EMT out there and, I always tell them like, "Hey, give me demographics of the patient when you get there." And it's okay, this year-old female and what the chief complaint is. And the chief complaint was, difficulty breathing, tightness of the
Mhm.
chest, and radiating left arm pain. I'm like, "Cool. Go ahead and bring them down here." "Oh, well, we're going to further assess." I'm like, "Bring the patient down here." And
Right.
then I have a direct line to 911,
Right.
for LA City. I don't even call 911. I call this 213 number.
Right.
And I rolled ALS because I'm like, chest pain, difficulty breathe. Like, I'm not fucking with that. I'm
Right.
getting the paramedics out here so they
Right.
can
Yeah.
do a 12 lead EKG and come to find out, as the EMT is taking the patient down, she has a pacemaker, all these other
Ooh.
pre-existing cardiac conditions. But based off of
Mm.
those initial complaints of what she's feeling, I knew better than to waste any time. And I'm like, I'd rather waste a paramedic's time from right around the corner coming out here to say, oh, no, it's nothing, than, not
Right.
call that resource and have her, start pacing or something. And, she has a massive freaking MI right in front of us.
Well,
Yeah.
that's
And
I
they're
told
dead.
you that one. I think I told you this. I went to a call. That was early on in my career. I was on my own, and it was grandma. Family's calling because grandma. All families having family dinner. Grandma's complaining of pain in her left arm, chest pain, like she's having a heart attack. And I fucking roll hot. I'm like, I'm gonna save grandma. And I'm young and dumb and idealistic, and I get there, and there's
It just had a fart.
this Filipino family, and I come running in, and I'm like, okay, tell me about it. And I'm assessing, right? And grandma's sitting there, and she's sweating, and and I'm like, okay, I gotta remember my training, and the fucking paramedic comes walking in, the slowest walk I've ever seen, like with a bag, and then they're like, and I'm like, hey, do you guys need? And they're like, no, we got this, you can clear. And I was like, really? And my buddy's, he was a cop. His wife was an EMT paramedic. And I was walking out, and she was walking out with me to grab something else from the bus. And I said, what do you think's happening? And she's like, it's PP. We've been out here before. And I said, what's PP? She goes, it's Filipino panic.
Oh man, that's like a real thing though.
So Hispanic panic,
Yeah.
Filipino panic is
Nice.
a real thing, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure I would be willing to bet you've already dealt with it, at least on some of your ride-alongs, if not in real life.
Oh, yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and I don't know if it's cultural, if it's, I don't have an explanation for it, but you have all these ideas, right? But here's the thing: if I had responded to that, right, like I didn't know what, what if it isn't PP and she really is having a heart attack, right?
Right.
And so the paramedics came in, they saw her, they knew her, they were like, okay,
Yeah.
we're
Frequent
gonna
flyer.
work her up. We're gonna work her up, but you can clear. Like,
Yeah.
it's fine.
Yeah, that's the thing. And what's interesting medically is that women don't always present with the same symptoms for
Right.
a heart attack as men too. So
Yes, right.
Mhm.
they're, they could not even have the arm pain or anything like that. But with this lady, with all those classic things, I was like, screw it, I'm not going to waste any time. And the medics showed up and they hooked a 12 lead up on her and everything. They're like, yeah, we need to get her. We need to take her. And
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
through that interaction, I met the captain that was out there for A shift on that particular from that particular company or firehouse station.
Mhm.
And so he was like, yeah, let's exchange information. He's like, because the previous company that was here, we had issues with them, and he goes,
Mhm.
but I, if I have a problem with your guys or you guys have a problem with my guys, I'd rather deal with it supervisor to supervisor. And I said, dude,
Right.
prior military, I am all about chain of command. We don't need to run this up to anybody with brass on their collar. He goes, I really fucking like you already, Matthew. And so I got his,
Yeah.
cell phone number, email, direct line to the firehouse, all that fun stuff. So it's, it's good to,
But see, that's relationship building, right? And I
correct. Yeah.
remember, so Matt and I had a client, I'll say KP, you'll know who I'm talking about.
Yep.
Matt and I had a client, and he was kind of a prick. But he was good at his job,
Yeah. Really good.
and he would do really big budget projects. And he gave me a piece of advice. I'm in my 30s, and he looked at me and he goes, let me tell you something. At some point in your career, you have to decide what kind of a, asset are you? And I said, what do you mean? And he lifted up his cell phone and he goes, at some point, you get paid more for who's in here.
Oh, yeah.
What's in there. And he points at my head. And I was like, oh shit. Like if you build those relationships and if you know how to build those relationships with people.
Right.
Right. And that's where we called them 20-year rookies. And Chuck, I know you've dealt with these.
Yeah.
There are guys that will be on police departments, fire departments. They will be on medics, paramedics, EMTs. They will be on the job 20 years and they will still make fucking rookie mistakes.
Yeah.
Because they don't have the sense that God gave a mule. Right.
Right.
And yet there are other people. My FTO, God bless him. He's about to retire as a lieutenant. Turned down testing for higher up. He's like, no, lieutenant's about as high as I want to go. The rest is bullshit. But when he handed me off to my next FTO, they always say, what's he like? And my FTO said, he came out of the womb with one hash mark on his sleeve.
Nice.
Right?
Yeah.
And that was like, you have these guys that come on the job and they get it. They have common sense. They get the job. They get the relationship part of it. They can do the okie doke. I had a buddy of mine. He's been on this show before. We worked together. He always struggled with the we used to call it the shucks okie doke, the ability to just communicate and build those relationships. Right. There was this barrier where it was like, I don't know. I mean, and he couldn't just sell it. Like I could talk somebody in handcuffs. I could talk them off a ledge, all that shit. Obviously I'm doing a podcast. I can fucking talk, but you have that same ability. You look at this guy and you're like, fuck it. Let's handle this like men. And the guy's like, I like the cut of your jib.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I in that same conversation, just the night before, we had 2 calls where I had to call 911 because in some of the venues we have an ALS bus sitting there. This particular one, unless it's a show that's more of an EDM ravey type thing, like I'm doing Thursday night, where we don't have anybody. So, Thursday night I was like, hey, I want extra Narcan for everybody, and I want an ALS bus just sitting there because
an extra water.
Yeah, an extra water. So
no, legit at a rave, you actually need water.
We are going to mine this joke for all it's worth.
Yes.
But seriously, you work a rave, they get so dehydrated.
Well, it's not. This isn't a rave, but it's that type of music.
Oh.
So,
like an EDM type thing?
I'm preparing for the worst case scenario and hoping that I never have to do that. Because there was a couple shows ago that everybody decided that tonight was the night that it was just going to be ETOH plus psilocybin night. So everybody was drinking and taking mushrooms for this music. And there were 2 of the guys, and then they're being wheeled into me because they're freaking, batshit cuckoo shroomed out. So the house thinks they're just, ANO times -4, so they wheel them into me. And 2 of the guys were like, yeah, it's my first time taking shrooms, and every single person I dealt with about a dozen people that night. Every single person, it was amazing, had only 2 drinks and only took a gram of mushrooms. Every single person, that was their answer. Like, how much did you drink? Oh, I just had 2 drinks, which you guys know is the standard answer. And then I'm like, and what else? And they're like, oh, I'm like, look, I'm not a cop. I don't care. I need to know medically what's in your body so I can help you. Like, what did you take? Like, I'm not going to call the cops. I don't freaking care. And they're like, oh, just a gram of shrooms.
Genuine, like, oh, I can't. No.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't care. Like, and I tell people, like, you see handcuffs or a gun on my belt? No, I'm not a cop. Like, I don't fucking care.
Soy policía.
Yeah.
What most people think is that they're going to take that. They're going to get, something's going to happen. Like a medical's going to come out and then they're going to be like, oh crap, I'm going to get in trouble. I'm going to get arrested for like possession. You can't.
Yeah.
They made a statute that if you are like ODing or you're getting medical treatment and you are under the influence of something, even if you OD and you have drugs there, we're not arresting you for that. We're just booking it as evidence, right?
But that's only in Cali, right?
People won't call for help. Yeah. I mean, I don't know where I worked. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And
I think that's only in Cali.
Yeah.
But yeah, two of these guys,
states that have done it too. But
yeah, I don't know about other states. Just Cali.
2 of these guys told me on 2 separate occasions that it was their first time taking shrooms, and this was a sold out event. Now this venue holds 17,500 people, and it was 100% sold out. And the one guy, because we were like kind of shooting the shit for a bit, and he was like the happy, haha, goofy, shroomed out guy. And he's like, yeah, it's my first time taking them, my friend said it would be more chill. And I leaned in and there was just him and I in the room. And I said, my guy, what made you think it was a good idea to take shrooms for the first time ever in front of 17,499 other people with loud music, with lasers, strobe lights, and fog? And he goes, when you put it like that, that was pretty fucking dumb of me. I go, yeah. I said, next time you're going to try something, pick a Saturday, stay at home, see what happens to you, like just hang out.
Yeah. Maybe not do that.
Yeah, maybe not do that. But yeah, so it's there's I get my fair share of the drunk calls. That's to me that's the equivalent of handing out bottles of water, because there's nothing I can do for you medically. Here's an emesis bag, puke into this, and then once you answer 3 out of my 4 questions correctly, I'm having security kick you out the front gate, and you're not our problem anymore.
Right.
But then you get I
didn't want to be drunk in public. I wanted to be drunk in a bar. They made me go into public.
You threw me into public.
By the way, can I, since we're on that topic real quick, Mr. Ron White.
Yes.
Wherever you are, I want to tell you, for the record, bars are public.
Yeah. People confuse it with it's a private establishment, but it's still a public. Anybody can walk in and out of there. Yeah,
right. I mean, that was one of the best. Like, I used to love going to party calls, and they'd inevitably they'd take the gate. The party would be in the backyard, and they'd take the side gate and they'd open it.
Yeah,
and that way, people could go in and out of the backyard to the party.
Right.
And so I would walk into the backyard of the party
because it's open to the public.
What's up?
Yeah.
And they were like, you can't come back here. And I'm like, what? Yes, what do you mean? Yes, I can. And they're no, this is private property. Well, I'm sorry. You opened the gate. It's open to the public. You have no expectation of privacy. And he's smoking weed and he's doing coke and that's underage drinking.
It happens so frequently.
Because people don't know their ass from a toboggan when it comes to the law.
Yeah.
But I always used to love fucking with them. Like, that was, I think, the best thing. And Matt, I don't think you could really do that because it's a little bit more professional for you. Like, if you're dealing with getting a call from medical service or someone who's drunk.
He has to help. We didn't. We just
had and here's the deal. Also,
just a loud party.
If I was doing this in the military, there's a whole different set of rules. Like, I could because you know how many times when somebody comes up to me at a venue and they're like, can I have a Band-Aid? And it's like a guy and it's like a little scratch. You know how many times I want to pull a tampon out of because I carry tampons and pads for the ladies because we're considerate. You know how many times I want to pull a tampon out and hand it to him just to see him and go, what the, oh, sorry, I thought your pussy was hurting. But I can't do that,
What if you handed him the maxi pad and be like, oh, sorry, I thought that was gauze. And sorry.
That'd be like the most epic way to quit a job. Do that.
Or if I want to carry the little juice box straws, the little tiny cellophane wrapped individual straws, and hand that to somebody. And when they go, what's that for? I'm like, it's a straw, big boy. So you could suck it the fuck up and move on, but I can't do that, but I want to, but I can't.
Yeah. Oh, let me tell you, frustration is real when you have things that you want to say to people.
Yes.
And you cannot. But I will say, I sometimes I said the quiet part out loud. There were times when parents would be like, okay, what do I do? I'm like, ma'am, under California law, it's still legal to spank your kids. Just don't injure them. What? Ma'am, under California law, it is still legal to spank your kids so long as you do not injure them.
Yeah, just with no whips or nothing like that.
Don't break. You can spank them with a whip as long as you don't injure them.
Yeah.
I mean, you hit a kid with a wooden spoon and you don't injure them. You leave a red mark that goes away within a minute or two. That's not an injury. Now you leave a bruise, you split skin, you make a bleed. Now you're in a whole different territory.
Yeah.
But Come on, people, right? Like that's what I would tell these people. I would like, sir, you realize you could suck the blood off of your own skin and move on with your life.
Yeah.
That's still a thing people do.
Oh, I've had people come into like when I do so there's like loadouts after the concert where I have to sometimes I just volunteer to hang out because it's like an extra 5 hours of double time at that point where I'm just waiting for there's local 33, IATSE local 33 stagehands that are tearing down the stage and stuff, and they're all professional. They very rarely ever get hurt. But there was one day where I had a rush of like 5 people come in, and there's 3 people. One guy's got a gash on his leg that I legit had to like, control the bleeding there for a hot second. And some other jackass comes in with a scratch, basically. Can I get a Band-Aid? I'm like, yeah, hold on. He's like, I really need a Band-Aid. And I said, do you see the blood-soaked gauze down here by this gentleman's foot? He goes, yeah. I said, he's a little more emergent than you are right now. I said, Band-Aids are in the second to the top drawer right there. Help yourself. Get out of here. Those guys you can kind of talk to like that. But yeah, stuff like that. I'm like, really, dude? Like, you see, like, I literally have blood on my hands. There's bloody shit everywhere. And you come in with a scratch wanting a Band-Aid. Like,
I would say that would even be fine. I mean, knowing your audience is really important, but I would say that would even be fine if you're treating someone who's very emergent and they're like, hey, and they're bothering you for a fucking Band-Aid. And you're like, hey, give me a second, see what I'm dealing with. And you could be kind of snappy. I don't think they would fall negatively on you.
I'm sorry, sir. You're not supposed to put Band-Aids on vaginas.
Now that would get you in trouble.
The saline wash is over there. What's that for? It's to wash all the sand out of your vagina, sir.
Yes,
clearly, it's all up in there.
Did you need a douche? Because that's what we need for vagina.
Jeez, yeah.
Well,
but yeah,
shit.
But I'm proud to say that I've been working for this company for a few months, and now I'm a supervisor. And I don't know if I'm proud to say, but unfortunately, I have handed out a total of 0 bottles of water. So I really need to step up my game.
Yeah, fix that.
And figure out the bottle situation and start handing out some water.
If you can take a photograph of your first water bottle, hand out, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, we're gonna be waiting for a long time because I don't do that shit.
Well, yeah, they cost $12.
Yeah, 6. They're like $6. Yeah. There's water fountains everywhere, but I don't know. I mean, do you typically hand out? I wonder if Marco hands out bottles of water when he's coloring on people. I mean, I don't know. I'll have to ask him that when he's there sitting down when he's sitting down all day coloring on people.
Wait, that was in the past. You did ask him that.
I did ask him that. Yes.
I wonder what he said.
We'll follow up.
Yeah.
This all right. Well, tricky.
I mean, Matt's our co-host, and we just did short stories, so I don't think we have a dedication, do we? Unless you want to dedicate it to your victim with the scratch that needed a Band-Aid.
No.
This goes out to that stagehand who scratched his elbow and needed. No. Anyway, well, cool.
Yeah.
We will. We'll have to get more because I know you're going to deal with like. I mean. That I remember when you tell I had a car crash right outside the venue. I'm tired as fuck. I'm having a whiskey. Like it's been a long night.
Yeah, because there was like once you come down from that, it's like because that dude was fucked up. Like
yeah.
I mean, it was like it wasn't gnarly stuff, but yeah. Because it's like you're the guy. You are the person right there that is, standing in the gap.
That's the best feeling in the world, though. That come down or like that euphoric high you get.
I felt good after I did like a pretty flawless like patient handoff report to the paramedic, and he goes, "Cool," and he didn't ask any other questions. I'm like, "Fuck, right on." He didn't ask any questions. Cool, we're good.
There does come a point where you're like, "Oh, fuck, I guess I do know what I'm doing."
I did that. Wow.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, good job, brother. And
right on.
I like we said, we're continuing to integrate both these shows. I'm not sure if I don't remember. If Eric from Two Cops One Donut joined us for Locker Room, but he might have at this point. I don't know.
I don't remember either. Yeah, I don't remember because it either didn't happen or it didn't happen.
Or it did.
Or it did.
It either didn't happen or it did. I'm not sure. But anyway, we've been having some fun with it. We've been bringing stuff. We've got some people coming up. We had a guy. I don't know. You guys will have to decide. We have to take a vote.
Oh yeah, we need to put this up to the peoples.
Yeah, we have somebody who wants to become a guest on the show that wrote a book about Vietnam snipers and interviewed a bunch of snipers from Vietnam.
Yeah.
Just wrote the book. And as far as we know, hasn't been there, done that. And we've had authors before in the past, but they've, in fact, the lieutenant colonel, fucking, dude, Tom Williams
he was solid.
Cash money. But we have to decide, should we interview people about books about the military that haven't, I don't know.
That haven't served?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Why don't we put a little one of those vote things up on the gram, and if there's a TikTok option for that, where you put a poll up and like a yes or no thing, and see what the people say.
By the way,
reach out to us and
Dylan is mad supporting China mad by growing our TikTok following. So I guess
again, because didn't it got sniped, right?
Yeah. Well, all of our social media accounts, we get fucking shadow banned no matter where we go.
Yeah,
because we talk about real shit, real for real. Like we're gonna get shadow banned on the YouTubes when last week on Locker Room Live we made fun of Kamala Harris's Manly Man ad.
Yeah, which we're still that was a real ad, right?
Where
everything is pointing to where that was a real ad.
It may not have been paid for by her, and it may not have been approved by her, but it was certainly a real ad.
It was a real ad. It was out there.
Yeah. In fact, check out our parody on social media. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, we had fun with it.
All right. Well, Chuck, what do you have?
Yeah. Well, I just want to say thank you, Matt, for coming on.
My pleasure, boys.
I just I want to say thank you for coming on, and it's apparent why they chose you to be their supervisor. It's apparent just in the stories that you told. So good on you, and that's amazing. I just want to say thank you all for tuning in today. And if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to follow us on Instagram at @war_stories_official and our Facebook at War Stories Podcast. If you already follow us, we'd really appreciate it if you could share a post and spread the word. You can also check us out in the link in our bio on both platforms and find all of our social media, links to our website, and our podcast. Our podcast is available on all major streaming platforms, including YouTube. If you'd like to support us, head over to our website at www.warstoriesofficial.com and grab some gear. We still have some Whoopie hoodies, shirts, patches, and stickers in stock. Stay tuned for what's coming next. And if you have a story you'd like to tell, or you know someone who does, we're always looking for law enforcement, corrections officers, dispatchers, firefighters, medics, and veterans, as well as ER docs and ER nurses. And if you have someone you think's interested, give them our booking email. Again, that is booking.warstories@gmail.com, booking.warstories@gmail.com, so we can share your story. We'd love to have you on. And if you know someone who'd be a great fit, send them our way. Thank you again. Stay safe.
And until our next episode, come home with your shield or on it.